Hello, I am Paula Bennett and welcome to my New Zealand Herald podcast, Ask Me Anything. One thing I've learnt in life is it's never too late to learn something new. So on this podcast, I talk to people from all walks of life to hear about how they got to where they are and get some advice and guidance on some of life's biggest questions. Okay, before we get into it, a quick hello if you're joining us through the new New Zealand Herald app, which has just launched. If you haven't explored it yet, you can now watch this show along with Herald Now and a range of other video podcasts in the app's dedicated watch section. There are also some new features worth a look, including My Herald, where you can personalise your experience by choosing the topics and voices you want to follow. Now, to our guest today. Hannah McQueen is an entrepreneur, a problem solver. Born out of her own mission to escape mortgage debt, she founded financial coaching business EnableMe. Over 18 years, Hannah built the company into a highly successful and recognisable brand. After selling the business in 2023, could have put her feet up, but no, not Hannah. She has decided she's going to tackle another big problem. She's now out to shake up aged care in the healthcare industry with her new company, Age Brightly. She's a force to be reckoned with. Hannah McQueen, welcome into my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice to have you here. Shall I warm you up? I'm going to throw you a, are you binge watching anything at the moment? Do you have time to binge watch anything?
I love a good binge. But there's nothing on because I think I've binge watched everything.
Everything. I'm actually re-binging.
Right. I quite like Yellowstone, so I'm watching the kind of the offshoot of that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, that'd be good. If you could time travel, would you go past or future?
Past.
Would you, to any particular time?
Well, in the short term, probably just so that I could have some interesting conversations with my grandmother.
Yeah. Nice.
If you go back to kind of moments in history, I'd quite like to be a spectator of some of those amazing moments. But yeah, it's certainly not committing to the lifestyle of the past. I'd still want a flushing toilet and all of those amenities available to me. And then if you think about the future, I think, would it be nice to see my grandkids or my great-grandkids?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what they're going to turn out like.
No.
But yeah, no, I'm happy where I am.
You could ask AI what they're going to look like. So we know you well as the founder of EnableMe. And I should say that I met you because I came as a client many years ago, over 6 years ago, and I came to see you because I heard you on News Talk ZB. And I'd heard you more than once. And I thought to myself, that's a smart woman, and that's someone that I probably need to go and see.
So I can take to lunch.
I can sort my life out a little bit. So that's how I know you as the founder of EnableMe. But who is the real Hannah? How would you describe yourself?
Driven, discerning, calm. I'd like to think funny, but my kids don't think I am.
Well, then you probably are.
Exactly. Loyal.
Yeah, nice. So you skipped year 13, left school early at 17 to start a degree, leaving Havelock North and moving to Auckland for university. That's massive, really. At that age? Were you because you were driven and all of those amazing things, like you said, you were even at that age?
Yes, I was driven from that age. And I am fueled by people who don't believe in me. So I think my teacher said, that's possibly the worst thing you could ever do, Hannah, or something like that, to which I heard, well, I'm going to do it. You know, like it's, I guess, something.
Prove them wrong.
I'll prove them wrong. And I guess you've always got to decide who are the people you trust for honest feedback to determine your blind spots. And I trusted my mum especially to kind of determine whether, did she think I could do it? Because her view of me at that time was very influencing, and she's like, you've got this, Han, you just go for it. And maybe that voice is what I hear often, which is, you've got this, Han.
No, that's really nice. Mine's a little bit, a bit the same, but mine's in my head. I just go, yeah, go on. You keep underestimating me.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't just stop at 17, right?
No.
And it possibly follows being a female and being successful. But I think anyone who's striving for success, there are people who doubt you. And so you've got to make allowance for the doubters and work out, do you still have it in you to go forward? And that's when, my mum probably is still part of my personal board of directors that I would consult and when I'm assessing kind of whether I commit to something, but you have other people as well that you pull along the way.
Yeah, because you make that point, as much as you can, ignore the naysayers and, think we'll just, but then equally we've got to be smart enough that we are listening to other people. You know what I mean? Like, so it is discerning which is which, right?
That's right. And there will be some people's opinions that count for a lot for you. There's a lot of people who have a lot to say, but it doesn't mean you attribute value to their comments. But there are some people, right, that their perspective holds a lot of mana with your decision. And when you make big decisions or big commitments, you've got to make sure that they are agreeing with it, because that helps fuel your own self-confidence, I think.
And they might ask you questions that you hadn't thought of, right?
Which is great.
Because inevitably you're going to be speaking to intelligent, driven people. And so they might, as they're navigating through a little bit of helping with the decision or giving their opinion, they're going to ask questions, that can stimulate and have you think quite differently.
Yes. And I guess you need to hold the idea softly enough that you can let yourself move in those directions, because it can shape further thinking. And that's quite similar with when you start a business, right? You have this is your kernel of your idea, but you're influenced by all this extra data that you're creating, and you're wanting to hold on to that, but also hear what you're supposed to hear so you can adjust as you need to adjust. So it stays true in business as well as personal.
So did you always know you were going to run a business?
I thought I was going to run a business. I just didn't know what it was. And I chose my degree because I am a chartered accountant and I did law and things at university. I chose that because something like 80% of CEOs are chartered accountants.
Okay.
And so I thought, well, that makes sense then. I don't know what that business is, but let's at least kind of get in the running for that. And then you get your qualification and you do your work, and then you start to be thinking, you're starting to think, okay, well, what is the business that you are going to do? And for me, having a strong sense of conviction is really important to keep me engaged, and for it to, because that conviction's got to feed your cup in those quiet, lonely moments in the middle of the night where you're pulling your hair out. It's like, am I doing the right thing? And the conviction for me for both Age Brightly and EnableMe has come from a personal experience or a family's experience, and me feeling this deep sense of injustice. And that's then what has fueled me. And I've only felt that it strongly is when I started EnableMe, and the injustice I felt there was...
Yeah, tell me about it.
I'm getting a mortgage. It's for $300,000. Why am I going to be paying $1 million back to the bank? Like, I kind of get compound interest, but really? Like, that feels crazy. And it is just compound interest and a loan spread over a very long period of time. And I thought, that just doesn't feel like cricket to me. But that's the done thing. And so in that situation, I thought, well, I don't want to pay that much money back to the bank. So paying my $300,000 back and then another 2 times in interest. So I needed to understand, well, how was that outcome achieved in the first place, to then reverse engineer how was I going to avoid it. And that's led to, well, in that situation, I don't know why I cared, but I called the calculus department of the University of Auckland and said, will you help me work on a formula to structure my debt to pay it off as fast as possible at the lowest possible interest rate with the maximum flexibility? And they said yes. And so over a 3-month period, I worked with one of the doctors of maths there, Dr. Jamie Sneddon, and we came up with this formula which would save me the size of my mortgage in interest costs.
Wow.
And to me I'm like, well, that's kind of cool, like $300,000. Because what people would previously say and still say is, we just shop around the banks and you'll get a sharp interest rate. And you do, but it kind of saves you $10,000. And I'm like, is it even worth it? Not trying to be disrespectful.
No.
So Like,
But when you're looking at a debt
this-
of 600,000 on top of your three,
that's right. If I can save 300,000, I'm like, now you're talking.
And so did you use that formula within the business?
Yeah, so I then moved to patent that formula, and then I'm like, okay, well, I've got this formula that sort of optimizes my debt structure, but it assumes I've got money left over to pay the mortgage off faster, which makes sense, apart from the fact I didn't have any money left over. So I was earning good money, but I was still living payday to payday. And I'm a chartered accountant. I know how to set a budget. I can colour code a budget if you want me to. I just wouldn't stick to it unless I felt like it.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, how do you get someone like me to engage on a spending plan so that I can unlock the savings that this formula permits? And that leans more into my psychology of spending and my relationship with money more than the science of money.
Okay.
And that was what EnableMe was. And as it turned out, there are many people that were like me that are actually smart. They like nice things. They don't want financial success to be at the expense of a lifestyle they enjoy. So how do we get that balance?
Yeah.
And we tried to craft that. And at the same time, they are willing to do something or compromise if you can make it worth their while. And so that was, I guess, the constraints we were working with, and then EnableMe came out at the bottom of that.
And I would have been a classic one as well, in that I'd been earning very good money, and then I got towards the end of my political career and went, I've got to sort my life out. And it wasn't me. Because I'd been so incredibly busy, and because I could pay my bills every week, I just didn't have my eye on it like I should have.
I think most people think incorrectly that if you earn more money, that if you just earn more money, you would be okay. But what more money gives you usually is permission to not worry about the money, not to actually use that or channel it to get ahead faster. So then you end up having people who are on great incomes and their lifestyle has stretched to match their income, not the speed of their wealth has grown at the rate that their income's increased.
Yeah.
And you see it every day.
Yeah. So did you enjoy the challenges of setting up and founding and growing such a significant business?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I enjoyed the challenges. I enjoy a challenge. Hard doesn't bother me. I like hard. I think I was from pioneer stock, as my grandmother would say. Don't make it easy for me because I just won't engage. And not everyone is good at doing hard things. But when it comes to setting up a business in the founding stage, I didn't find it particularly romantic, to be honest. It was just hard graft. And you were committed to a path, and I was just committed to it. I've often reflected, if knowing what I knew, would I do it again? Maybe. Well, I have now, but would I relive the EnableMe experience? Maybe. There's just trade-offs. And, I mean, some people have incredible journeys and arcs to their business success, but I enjoyed it. Maybe that's why I kept doing it. I loved working with people. I loved changing lives. I love meeting new people and kind of engage on this really, at a sensitive level, a delicate level, you are having this relationship. I loved that. That's probably what fueled me more than anything. And I was just able to wrap a business around that.
So you sold in 2023?
Yes.
So why did you sell?
Because the arc of the business in my mind had concluded and it was ready for its next stage, and I wasn't the right person to take it to where it could be, I don't think. When I started a business, as is always the case, opportunity always comes at the most inopportune time. That is how you know it usually is opportunity. So I had amazing stuff happening with the business, and then I'm pregnant like 3 months in. So my little boy, Cameron, he came with me to work for the first year, and we'd fly to Wellington every week, and he'd be on my hip, and you'd have the pram, and I couldn't afford the taxi, and so I was catching the bus. It was a lot.
A lot.
But you're young and you can do anything you want. I don't think I could put myself through that now. I'm too accustomed to the finer things, I think. But so Cam, he was finishing school, and so it was like, well, we started this together, and now we're ready for our next chapter. That off the back of that was we'd had COVID, and I thought EnableMe had the ability to go into other markets for people who wanted to take it. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Do you have any tips for people out there navigating the sale?
Oh, I think it depends who you're selling to. The due diligence process, which is when the purchaser is looking to buy you, that can be quite harrowing and exhausting, which is normally the best time to negotiate, right? If someone's just exhausted.
Yeah, true.
Like, that would be what I'd say to kids if you're like trying to negotiate pocket money. Wait until mum and dad are exhausted and you'll get whatever you want. So that process was challenging. It was longer than what I expected. There were just things coming at you all the time. I had a great team around me, a great board as well.
And I was going to ask, so they knew you were selling? Did your
Absolutely.
staff know? Yeah.
Well, they didn't know I was selling because I wasn't selling until I was approached. I thought I was still a few years away from creating an exit.
Okay.
And then I was approached by 3 people kind of within the same month. So at that, it was disclosed. But in the due diligence period when you're exhausted, and it's about always who do you get the information from so that you're going to take it on board, right? Like that, understand that about yourself, and it will change for different instances, but that can shape an outcome. So in my situation, I was exhausted and you're crawling to the end, and there were terms that I had to negotiate, and can you be bothered negotiating? This is what was going through my mind. In any case, I called my uncle, who's Australian and an amazing negotiator. And I say the Australian bit because they're just naturally bullish,
They are,
right?
actually. Yeah. Another level of confidence, and just uncompromising in it. Yeah.
And he said, Han, let them see the whites of your eyes, be prepared to walk away from the deal, and remember, this is what you've trained for.
Great advice.
And I was like, that was like my pep talk. It was like straight into the arm. I'm like, this is good. And then it was like, switch, let's close this as it needs to be closed. And I was able to do that. And it was the timing, that was the right word at the right time from a person that could just cut through, and it landed.
Yeah.
So
you haven't disclosed what you sold the business for, but rumour has it that that it left you pretty well off. So did you think about retiring? I mean, you said you were exhausted. Did you think, well, I'm okay?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have a rest and retire and.
Absolutely. I was ready to settle on up and ride on out of this town, right? Like I was job done. I'm like, yeah, you go, girl. Let's go.
You don't have to catch the bus with the pram anymore.
I know. I have reflected with my husband, I think, because you're ready to skylark, but then you're grounded by your own reality, right? Like you still got children that need to go to school, and I'm like, let's go traveling for 2 years. It's like it's not even an option, unless it just isn't an option. And so you are grounded by you're slapped across the face by some of these other things that you love as well, as much as they remove some of the glamour of something. But I certainly wasn't planning to start another business or in older person healthcare. Like what? I hadn't had that feeling of injustice, that conviction that triggered EnableMe being started. I had never had that feeling subsequent to that, which was helpful, I guess, because then I didn't get distracted. In my earn-out period, which is the other thing that they don't tell you about selling a business, you have a kind of crazy as due diligence period, and then you have to earn out. You've got to stay and be earning targets to demonstrate kind of they're getting the value. That's just normal. But you're no longer captaining the ship at that point, right? So you're there, you're doing your job, you're making sure the numbers are hit, but you're not influencing the strategy. So you're a little bit, it's not as intense. It's not as intense, right? And so I'm used to being intense. For the last 18 years, I'm intense. So it was quite relaxing, the earn-out period on some levels, right? You know you've got to get the job done, but the strategy, the thinking, that's been taken off your shoulders. So, of course, there's a little bit of capacity to think some more. It was during that period that I had this lovely client called Gervin come to me. And one of the things that EnableMe does is we're all about growing wealth so that you can retire. And once we've grown enough wealth, then I wasn't really involved in what happens post-retirement. Once I just had to solve let's make sure you've got enough money to live the life that you want. So when Gervin came in, she was coming in to ask me about whether she could afford to put her mum into a rest home. And I'd never seen a rest home contract at that point, and I read the contract, and I'm like, well, you can afford to do it, but the next question is this the right one? There's sort of a whole lot of more questions to ask. And it wasn't until I read that contract and started to do a bit more digging around how the healthcare system works and how we support older people in this country that I felt sick and I had that feeling of this isn't right. This actually is not okay. And I hadn't, as I said, that didn't mean that I was the one to solve the problem, but that feeling was enough for me to think, I'm just going to pull at a few more threads here to see if there is a problem that can be solved that I could solve. And that started the arc towards Age Brightly.
Okay. Right. So I think we need to explore Age Brightly more because it's that sense of injustice for you and that journey that you went on actually in that 12 months to actually end up where you were changed as you sort of indicated. So look, let's take a quick break and then we will come back and let's talk about Age Brightly. Okay, welcome back. Thanks for coming back and listening in. We're chatting to Hannah McQueen, former owner of EnableMe and now founder of Age Brightly. Okay, so you talked about what sort of registered and got the spark going again. And and so that was seeded the thoughts that actually aged care is not right, not fair. I mean,
well, it wasn't so much aged care. It was just, you look under a rock and you're like, what is happening here? And so the first thing I saw was this contract, which felt, it felt very one-sided in fear of the village or the rest home that this person was going to. And that was my first glimpse of it. Now, I have since concluded I completely misjudged that. But
oh, really?
Yes.
Why?
Because the retirement villages are operating, they are running these hospitals with care beds in them, of which we're told we don't have enough of them. Apparently we're 12,000 beds short. It costs $500,000 or something a year, or $500,000 to build a bed. So the only people who are really building beds are the big 4 or 5 or 6 retirement villages.
Sure.
So, and I didn't know this industry, so I was like blurring terms left, right and centre. So you have your retirement village, which is your independent living that has nothing to do with your rest home care. The rest home care is when we talk about building a bed and we don't have enough of those beds. And so when I was looking at it, I'm like, well, this is outrageous. How can they charge so much for these beds? Well, they have to charge that amount because they don't get enough money to fund the beds from the government. And then they kind of make good by selling their retirement villages at, they have to make money. The retirement village capital growth is what kind of mops up everything. And so I'm like, well, I can't really point my finger at the retirement village and that being unfair without recognising, well, that's kind of solving a problem over here, which is kind of a result of, a lack of subsidy from the government. But then the government's poor. And then I'm trying to find the... what can we do to change this circuit breaker? And I talked to some amazing people. Tracy Martin is an amazing person and she's running the aged care. So she kind of oversees all these hospital beds is what they call them. So she's got 50,000 across the country with all the different operators. And she's very hot on, we need to be building more beds. Like, this isn't okay. Everyone's getting old. There's a grey tsunami. What's going to happen? And what happens if you don't have enough rest home beds, which don't cost nearly as much as a public hospital bed, but if you don't have enough of those, people stay in the public hospital for long, you get your bed block, right, off we go. And she's like, we need to build more beds. And I'm thinking, there is no money to build these beds. And I'm like, well, that's one way to solve it. Isn't the other way that we actually prevent people getting into the rest home, because most people don't even want to be there in the first place.
No, that's right. They want to be independent living for as long as they possibly can.
And of course, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, why aren't we focusing on that? And that was the next little kernel of an idea that I'm like, okay, if I'm going to try and keep people out of rest homes, what does that look like? Because meanwhile, I'm talking to my mum and she's like in my ear, well, I don't want to go into a rest home. And whilst I agree, I'm thinking, well, are you expecting me to care for you? That's what I'm thinking, because I don't know if I'm equipped to do that, and I don't know if she'd want that. But I guess the point was more, well, it's all well and good to have that objective, I don't want to be in a rest home, but what's your strategy to keep yourself out of a rest home? That's what I was saying to Mum, and she would be like, well, I've got health insurance. I'm like, well, that comes in after the problems happen, so not that helpful, and I've got my GP. And I'm like, well, what are you going to cover off in your 10 minutes with your GP? And so I think a lot of people have this idea that they don't want to be in a rest home, but the tools they've got to work with to keep them out of a rest home are pretty antiquated and reactive, which is the current GP system. You go to your GP, who are incredible, but you go to them once you have a symptom. You don't go to them if you're wanting to do preventative work. The model that they're funded on doesn't permit that.
They don't have any time, right?
You need time. It's all time. And, so
and they can't even really get to know you, because you're going in and going, by the way, I've got this sort of, lump on the back of my shin, and I'm worried that sore's not healing as quickly and as well as it should be.
Yes, and your blood pressure's...
I'm pretending to be 70.
Yeah. Yeah, how's that
I'm okay. And so they're addressing that, and they're not then going, how's your mental health? Are you lonely? What's your living situation like now? Are they?
No. Exactly.
They can't.
You can't. Like, even if you're trying to diagnose dementia, it takes between 3 to 4 hours to do it. Like, are you supposed to block out your GP's day? This is assuming they can specialise in it.
I was going to say they need the expertise to do that as well,
which is another thing. So anyway, I'm talking to Tracy, and she's like, well, why don't we keep them out of the rest home instead of just build more beds, which no one can afford? And she says, well, look, the issue is always bigger in the regions because they can't even get access to specialists. And it's always worse if you're a not-for-profit operator. So don't kind of think of, really luscious retirement villages, of which I would move into tomorrow if they would take me. I think they're incredible. She says it's just hard to access the right support. And so then I'm like, okay, if it's worse in the regions, I'm interested enough in understanding this, so I'm going to go to Southland for 2 weeks and see if I can follow the journey through from ageing well, working, living independently, to retiring, to slow decline, to your hospital admission, to back home, follow that journey all the way through to death, to try and understand it, because I didn't have lived experience from my parents. My parents are still too young. And how does it show up in the regions when they don't even they've got limited doctors, and in some cases they don't even have access to geriatricians, which are I didn't even know what a geriatrician was.
No, I was going to say you'd better explain that.
Yeah, so a geriatrician is someone who specialises in older person disease and diagnostics.
Yeah. And they're specialists, right? They're clever specialists.
15 years, right? So they're the paediatrician for old people.
Yeah, okay. Got you.
So they're the goat when it comes to what you need to do. They are the ones who sign off when you go to the hospital because you accidentally had the fall and now you can't go home and now you're off to the rest home. It is them that signs off on you going into a rest home.
Okay.
So I don't think you want to meet a geriatrician at the end, but you really want to work with them to prevent you getting to that point.
Yeah, I understand.
So I'm like, well, how many geriatricians do we have in New Zealand that you can access privately? Because you can access them in the hospitals, but it's like, well, you're on your last legs at that point. We want to access them earlier. Maybe there's 15 in the whole country. So in Auckland, I think we've got 2 private geriatricians. So you're waiting 6 to 9 months I'm like, well, that's not going to work,
No.
is it? So, when I was following this process through, I went down to Southland, I went to Gore. I started off in the Gore hospital. You walk through the hospital, and actually all hospitals in the country, I think the average age of someone in a hospital bed is like 85.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They've come from the ED. They go to the ED because their doctor can't help them, either because it's an emergency or they just can't get into the doctor because there's a 3 to 4 week wait. And you're kind of going all the way back, and we're looking at the reasons for the admission, because I've taken a doctor down with me. We're looking at the reasons for the admission, and I don't even know what the admission reasons are. I didn't even understand the terms. But the doctors were put it in front of 3 doctors, and they thought between 50 to 70% of the admissions to hospital are preventable if we could get to them faster. But the GP isn't always the right person to get to them faster. They need to be able to access a team of specialists, which is a multidisciplinary team. But the reason why you don't want to get into hospital is you are 10 times more likely to end up in a rest home if you've had your hospital admission. And so if you don't want to end up in the rest home, and I do think that the rest homes are actually quite amazing, but if you don't want to end up there, you've got to prevent yourself getting to hospital in the first place.
And we can't quite afford for people to be going in younger and living longer. And so, whereas they used to perhaps go for 5 years, 5 years or less, they could potentially be in there for 15 or 20, and that could continue to grow. So you're right, for the individual and their own mental health. But then equally, there's the whole, as you said, more beds, what we can afford, and the type of lives we want people to lead.
That's right. That's right. And then you get the bed blocks, right? So because there are no rest home beds to take these older patients out of the hospital to free up that bed, it blocks the bed, and then that blocks all the way up to they can't take more admissions. The ED gets full, so the ambulance driveway's full, and it's just a nut. It's nuts. But the person doesn't even want to be in the rest home either. So it's like, well, can we just take a minute to look at this problem in its entirety? And that's what I was interested in doing. And when you look at some of the some overseas countries that have what I think is world-class care of their older people, because I do think that we dishonour our older people. But when you look at, say, Singapore or the Mayo Clinic, or what is best practice when it comes to looking after them, it's all geriatrician-led care. Let the specialist determine what is going on. Because the thing that a specialist does is, for geriatricians, if you think of your health, think of it, I guess, as an iceberg underneath. So above the waterline are the symptoms that you're experiencing. Okay. You might have had a fall. You might be feeling you're losing your memory, which I'm probably feeling as well. But you're conscious of some things changing. Not necessarily enough for you to be nervous. But underneath that waterline, there's the iceberg, there's a whole lot of things that are starting to change and decline. You're not even aware of it yet because it hasn't presented itself above the waterline. By the time it presents itself, that's when you're waddling off to the GP. The symptoms, the signals could be clocked up to 10 years earlier if we were tracking it and intervening earlier.
And knowing that, could you do something differently to slow down?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if you look at the reasons why people are going into hospital, the preventable reasons, it's cardiovascular, it's delirium or cognition or dementia. Yep. So they kind of all go together. It's falls, and it's medication. All those things, if we can get to the right person and give them the right treatment, we can prevent the decline that sends them to hospital, and they have better quality of life. So, for example, without kind of jumping to some of our products, to reassure everyone, I am not a clinician. I am the daughter of older parents who wants a better outcome, and I'm going to swing until I get a better outcome for them. And if I can try and do it for other families, that's what Age Brightly is. But I'll make sure I get it for my parents, if nothing else. So anything I say in a clinical lens, we've got a clinical team who are leading that. So we've got 6 geriatricians. There are 12 in the country. We've got 6 working for us.
Wow.
There's a multidisciplinary team made up of another 10 people. So we had a client who came in and who needed a medication review done, and they were on 15 meds or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
What people don't realise, I didn't know that when you're on more than 5 meds, that's the term they call polypharmacy, you have a 75% increased chance of falling because of the medication interactions. And so you take medicines because you've got comorbidities, right? You've got things that are going on. And so when I'm looking at this particular client, or I'm getting the summary from the team, I don't see their personal details, they're taking more than 10 medications. I spoke to the geriatrician and the clinical prescribing pharmacist who worked through that. It took them hours to work through it. All but one of those medications needed to improve, change, adjust. Either the thresholds weren't appropriate, the medication was outdated. There were changes that were required.
Wow.
It just takes time, right? It takes the right specialty and sufficient time. Well, if that then reduces his risk of falling, not like quality of life, you're not getting up in the middle of the night and peeing or something because of the medication's doing whatever. It's game changer. And that's just the medication review. When I was looking at it, again, because I'm just looking at this from a normal, a smart Kiwi lens, I would like to think. I think we are trained in our culture to look at things differently and to challenge the status quo.
And fix it.
Like, if you can do it, why would you not do it?
Yeah.
And we'll see if I can do it, I guess.
So effectively, you've had to start up a private business because the system itself is kind of so complicated and broken, where, a lot of people would be going, surely that's the role of, in New Zealand, of our public health system, that they're helping me stay well and look after older people. But
well, they don't help you stay well. They're there if you're in a crisis. They are there to help you. That's the current health system. It's not their job to invest in your wellness. I mean, there's a argument they should, because the return on investment makes sense. But their job is to be available to you in a crisis, and largely they are. For many of us, we don't want to wait until a crisis to get an intervention.
Yeah.
And the problem is that the system doesn't offer anything to those people, and that's what Age Brightly is creating. It's a pathway to people who want to be proactive in their ageing, to address risks early, intervene early with the right specialists. So not only do we have the geriatrician, we've got the pharmacist, the occupational therapist, the nurse, the dementia nurse, the neuropsychologist, all the ologists seem to be in the team, right? But that's what you need. That's what I want for my mum.
Yeah.
Like, if something's wrong, I don't want to be having a hypothetical with some junior about something. You give me the expert and you get them all in the room and we're going to make some hard decisions. That's what I want. But the problem with our current system is you can't, even if you wanted that, you can't access it. And even if you do go to a private geriatrician, of which we don't have many, they don't have that multidisciplinary team around them. It isn't a gerontology practice. It's a one person who can see you. And we're trying to actually solve some big problems here. So even say on our Mind Thrive, which is that cognitive impairment but not yet dementia stage, we're bringing 6 clinicians in to try and get ahead of this problem. When it comes to the dementia, we're bringing 7 in. Like, we're not mucking about with this stuff. But the problem is that to do it right, we need to take time to do it. The right people in the right room need the time. That costs money, so there's a cost for it. And
that's what I was going to ask. Is it fair that people that can't afford it won't get access to this kind of service? And
well, I would say it's not fair.
No.
I think that everyone should get access to it, but that's a government decision, right? I think in the first instance, because there are no pathways at the moment for people to not end up in crisis, you've got people who can afford to pay for it and want a better outcome. There's nothing currently available to them, so they will still take up a hospital bed. They never wanted to. So even if I'm just helping, unfortunately, the top 30% of the market who can afford the service, well, those were 30% of hospital beds that are now free for other people to use.
That's true. And what evidence and what data are you collecting to know how effective and whether or not it's working?
Well, we actually just we're collecting a lot of data. But if you look at the countries that do this well, so Singapore, Japan, the Mayo Clinic, these are people who are best practice. The data's already there. If you have geriatrician-led care, it saves $2 for every $1 you spend. From a government perspective, from a family's perspective, it's not just that saving, it's where you've got peace of mind. Like if you're in control of something that actually feels quite foreign to you, and it's not going to destroy the family. In some instances, if a parent got dementia, the average cost of dealing with someone with dementia is around $400,000 US. Like there is a hidden cost to that diagnosis.
Yeah.
In addition to that, the spouse who is now going to faithfully look after them until they can't, there's a 600% chance that they will get dementia.
Wow.
Not that it's contagious, but the conditions that lead to it, which impact the brain, the carer's health is as important as the patient's.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if we
don't
can help
recognise
navigate that, I mean, not only are you saving money, but that's keeping families together.
So what's your hope for Age Brightly?
Yeah, so we're going to go, well, my hope is that it's nationwide.
Okay. Because you're just in Auckland at the moment?
We are actually nationwide at the moment because our geriatricians are based around the country, but that system is done through telehealth. So you can either see them in person or online, but you've got access to them and they're yours. Our services can be done remotely, so the medication optimizations, the dementia diagnosis, or the Mind Thrive, the cognition, the falls, all that can be done remotely. But the nurse assessment needs to be done in person.
Okay.
So we've got nurses who can go all around the country
Yeah.
and collect that data, spend that time with you. That feeds back to the mothership, and then we take over that relationship from there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so the vision, I'd love to be able to take this rurally. I mean, my background, I'm a regional kind of gal, and if we can take it, there are people who are neglected, and I think the regions most definitely are neglected. If we can take Age Brightly and bring some of, a group of leading geriatricians and specialists to their region and give them access to it, like that breaks barriers.
Yeah.
And that changes lives. I mean, when we were in Gore and I was doing some proof of concept testing down there, it was fascinating. But I was talking about the hospital, and for them to get an older person discharged, often because and this isn't Gore specifically, often because they have comorbidities, they need the geriatrician to be the one to determine, is it safe for this person to go home? And a doctor, unless they're specialised in that, will be like, not my bag.
Yeah.
So there is no specialists in some of these regions, so they have to call the local the next public hospital, which for them might be Dunedin.
Yeah.
Well, they might wait a few days to hear back from their geriatrician because that geriatrician is busy doing amazing work there. But the way that we access the support just is so munted.
So that person's had to stay in hospital for all those extra days.
Yeah, which
they
costs
may not
the
have needed
taxpayer.
to.
They don't even want to be there, and they don't even need to be there.
Yeah.
Basically every rock I look at is a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Just like, really? Who's running this ship?
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm excited, and I think that there's just huge potential for where it could go, and I think that it is something that we need to keep talking to government about, I think, because and you will collect more information and have more of a proof of concept, right? Because it's more than just a
from
concept
a government
now.
perspective. Oh, yeah, it's real data now.
Yeah, it's real data and it's real people, and you've got it up and running. So I just have every hope for that. Okay, my last bit for this segment is, what is some of the best advice that you have either given or have received?
Well, my kids would say I don't ever give good advice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. Marry well.
Oh, yeah.
I said to my son, don't marry a dud. That's just, because I think that's one of the biggest decisions you ever make in your life. And
So
if you
true.
get it wrong, I mean, so I think the best advice I've given is there are very few decisions that count for generations, but choosing the right partner is a biggie. The best advice I've heard is life is long. One hand full in quietness is better than 2 hands full and vexation of spirit.
Mm.
So kind of overcommitting. But, I mean, can you get better than it's not the critic who counts? Because I get a lot of critics, but it's the person who's in the arena, right?
Yeah.
And they're swinging and they're covered in blood, sweat and tears, and it is not glamorous, but they're committed.
Yeah.
That's the one that I've got on my wall at work. And I have
They're
to look
actually
at that.
in the game.
Yeah. Like anyway, I have people that just take shots and I don't even know why they take shots, but again, that's not the voice I'm going to listen to.
No.
I'm listening to the person who came. We had a mother and daughter come into an appointment yesterday to have their initial assessment. And the daughter comes up to me afterwards and she said, I just want to thank you for what you're doing. Which I then cry.
Yeah.
Because and I'm like, that is why I am doing this.
Yeah. And that's the voice that you should be listening to. Okay, the podcast is called Ask Me Anything. I've done all the asking. So you're now allowed to ask me something.
Okay, so your granddaughter,
Yeah.
if you had one day to spend with her and you had 1 or 2 bits of wisdom that you would pass to her, what would you say?
What would I say to her? She is a
Very well.
firecracker. Yeah, very well. She's a firecracker. So she's kind of me on steroids.
Is that even a thing? I thought you were already on steroids.
No,
Like, this is off the
So
charts.
it's not so much advice, but I just want to go calm. You know, actually, life's going to be all right. And, you know, just the drama of the moment, if we could just slow it all down a little bit, because she's going to do extraordinary things if she just took a breath every now and then. And we don't need to know every thought and feeling you're having every moment.
I hear you. Okay, and one last, I've no doubt if you're her gran, but if we go up a generation to your mum, who's by all accounts a pretty amazing woman,
Yeah.
what would be the one thing you'd say to her?
In the past, I would have said, leave the bastard. In fact, I may have. But then who are we to judge, right? She had an amazing, she's still alive, but he passed away. And she had an amazing last few years as very, very good friends. So I used to think, well, you know, and so an incredibly strong woman, but just of that generation where she didn't back herself as much as she could have and should have. So just that back yourself.
Quite generational though.
Yeah, it was very generational. And in fact, in many ways, she's remarkable. She's a librarian, and so she did work and, you know, manage the house and everything else. But just a little bit more of that confidence, I think. Nice.
Well, you got it in spades, so maybe it bypassed the
I know.
generation.
There you go. Maybe she just handed it all on to me. Hannah, thanks so much for coming in today. I've just thoroughly enjoyed it. So where can people find out more about Age Brightly?
You can go to nzherald.co.nz, and I also have a podcast called The Next Bit, which is talking about some of these hard conversations that we need to navigate as we get older.
So check out, website, and then
The Next Bit podcast.
The Next Bit podcast. I absolutely love it. Okay, so that's it for another episode of Ask Me Anything. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow Ask Me Anything on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you check out some of our past fabulous guests while you are there. I'm Paula Bennett. Ask Me Anything. Goodbye.